Hello guys, welcome back to Personality Profile. I am personally excited because usually the back-end conversations are even more juicier than the one that you get to watch on TV. But I'm going to try my best to get one of Ghana's favorite legislator, one of Ghana's long-serving legislator or lawmaker, and we managed to visit him in his home in Accra here to have a sit down with him, as I've been telling you earlier, and then get to find out. It's been nearly 2 months to answer that one big question: is he exiting from being a lawmaker or from politics entirely? And then get to ask that ultimate question, which will be a surprise to him even at the end of the conversation, as to whether he's nursing presidential ambitions. We will ask him. So welcome back, leader. Thank you for granting us the honor to be in your home. How have you been?
Well, thank you for having me. I've been cool. Having exited Parliament, and unfortunately, quite busy as usual. You know, as part of, after our laws, the Presidential Transition Act provides for the putting together of a team, the team comprising a section from the incumbent government, and then the presidential candidate would have been voted for. So we had this team, and I was backing up the chief of staff, the former chief of staff, as you know, the team from the office of the exiting administration. That took a while. That took a while, and even after the handing over on the 7th of January, there were still reports that we had to conclude. And that took some time, I think about 2 more weeks for us to conclude everything and submit to the incoming administration. Beyond that, no thanks to our laws, the Ashanti Regional Executive of my party put together a team that was to inquire into the circumstances that led to a rather abysmal performance in the region. And I chaired the committee. So I was working alongside the project of the transition team. The two were going, you know,
You're happening at the same time.
And so when we concluded this, I had to recline to Kumasi to work to conclude that project, which we were able eventually to finish and hand over to the regional executive through the regional chairman last Sunday.
Right. And what have you been finding? What have you been learning? And which one of them is the most shocking to you personally?
Well, we've handed over. Maybe I can speak to the broad contours of the findings and not to go into the details, because we've handed over to those of them who tasked us to do that assignment. A colleague of mine is just about arriving from the office of the former president, having handed a copy to him, because the key, you know, factor in the endeavor. The other person is the candidate who is outside the jurisdiction, and the running mate is also outside the jurisdiction. The national chairman is here to receive his copy. So I don't want to, you know, jumpstart it. Let all of them be served first. After all, as I said, it was the regional executive that commissioned us to do that. After they've read it and they want us to speak to the issues, we can.
But the losing was quite public, and I understand that you have to provide the report to those who taxed you. But personally, the general contours, as you have just said, at least one of them, which would not be surprising, you may think, may not be surprising to Ghanaians at all.
Well, I mean, what happened, if we have to relate to what happened, from the top of one's head, having been in this game for a long time, I could, from the top of my head, relate to factors. But I'll tell you that when they went to the ground and touched base with the voters, the generality of voters, not just limited to our the constituency executives. They met the constituency executives, then went into communities, met at random what the group that we call electoral area coordinators. They met polling station executives, but went into the markets, went into the lorry stations, met taxi drivers, trotro drivers, masons at work, mechanics, market women, hairdressers, barbers, all of them, artisans. And people even go into their farms. They engage them. And, the outcome is very shocking. Some of the things that are emerging, I never imagined. They never crossed my mind that these will be factors, they will be contributory factors to, people not participating in the vote or voting against us.
Right.
There are major issues, but as I'm saying, until we have the causes clear signal, I wouldn't want to go into the details.
Do you miss Parliament at all? It's nearly 2 months.
Well, human as I am, occasionally things come up and you think that, well, maybe if I were to be around, maybe I'll be doing things differently. But let me say that I also engage the leadership on both sides. And colleagues call when there are issues to, test my mind, my brain on those matters. And I think so far so good. A few hiccups, though, that, as I said, I thought shouldn't have happened the way they did happen. But we're making progress.
Let's start with your name.
Yes.
Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu.
Right.
I'm an Ebe, and
Right.
typically in the Volta region, your name, all of your name would be surnames. So I've always wondered, how is that one person carrying about 4 surnames as their names? Is there any story behind your name?
Well, at birth, I was given a name Osei Bonsu Akomia. That's my real name, Osei Bonsu Akomia. My father is Kyei-Mensah. And because my father was born on a Wednesday and I could die, I think the day of his birth stuck. So he used to be called Kweku Adai.
Oh.
But his real name was Kweku Kyei-Mensah.
Okay.
Right. So growing up, at the elementary school, I used the Adai.
Okay.
But when I went to secondary school, transiting to the university, and I changed and used my original name, Osei Bonsu, plus the Kyei-Mensah of my father. I had to leave out the Akomia because it was going to be too long. And even though I was born on a Sunday, I could also use my day name.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have been Kwesi Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu Akomia. That would have been very mouthful. So 2 names had to be cut off. That's how come I'm using Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. Right,
and you're born in the Ashanti region. Tell us where you were born. How many siblings do you have? Are your parents still alive?
Well, my maternal siblings were 5 altogether. We lost one. We lost the only female amongst us, who died, I think, 2021 after our victory. Quite unfortunately. All of the other 4, including me, are alive. I'm the second born. But my father's side, I have, or I used to have 4 other siblings. Unfortunately, all of them have also transitioned, leaving out only one, who is also the second born in that line.
Okay.
Or should I say, there's also another, excuse my language, stray one, who is also alive, but he's in France. So those of us alive now, we 4 + 1 + 1, that would be 6.
Okay.
The other side is from the Ahafo region. Kofi Juma's father, Kofi Ghana.
The Kofi Juma that we know.
Kofi Ghana, yes, that you know. You know, Kofi Juma, the father was married to Mrs. Ofori Juma, the state attorney. The woman is still alive, but the father transitioned just about, I think, about 4 years or so ago. Kofi Dwuma's stepmother, the one she comes after, was my mother's rival. So I have siblings in the Ahafo region, and they used to come to our end, and then I also used to go there.
This means that you grew up in a polygamous home?
No, my father engaged my mother, and I think he went to work in that enclave, and the uncle to my mother's rival, my stepmother, I should say, I think he got so enthused about my father's physical appearance, and those days he gave the niece to my father for marriage. But my mother had been engaged by my father. Okay. So when my mother came of age, my father reclined and then came and took possession, full possession.
I understand. And you had all of your education in the Ashanti region. Is that the case?
No, Ashanti and then Eastern region.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I want to know which part you started in the Ashanti region.
I started my elementary school in Ashanti region, in the Kwabri West constituency and district now. I started there, got to class 2, then migrated to Bremang. Within the, at the time it was Kumasi City Council area, KCC. Then went to continue at St. Joseph's, then came back to Efrancho, then went back eventually to Swami. So some crisscrossing. And then secondary school at Kwawunkwetia St. Peter's Secondary School. From there to University of Science and Technology. And then after that, after a while, did a second degree outside. Then came to Parliament.
What kind of a home did you grow up in? What kind of a mother? Let's ask your mother. What kind of a mother did you have?
Oh, well, a strict disciplinarian, very religious, and wouldn't, look at, couldn't really tolerate any of us straying to any other path, onto any other path, apart from the strict Christian discipline that she had, really affected us. And she wanted us to keep to the faith. And all of us, indeed, managed.
Stuck to the Christian faith?
Yes, yes.
And your father?
My father, yes, was also religious, but I would say that he wasn't as deep as my mother was.
Okay.
He wasn't as deep as my mother was. I think my father's problem was, those days there was this strict enforcement of the rule that Assemblies of God were eschewed smoking. My father used to be a chain smoker, but later on he slowed down, and my mother couldn't tolerate that. That was, I think, the impediment. My father was, he never drank.
Okay.
He never drank, and then I think that was the difficulty for him.
You started politics rather very early. If I subtract nearly 30 years from my age, I'll be a toddler. I'll be pulling your TV here down. But what year, at what age did you start politics? Did you start in the university at all?
Yes, somehow. In fact, at secondary school, we had one of our seniors who came and formed a club at the school, at the time not known. He was one Kwashi. I think Kwashi had come from, was it Accra Academy or one of the whole schools? I've forgotten. But he came and planted the Student Movement for African Unity. And some of us joined. And that was where I had my baptism into, the anti-colonial, perspective of youth development. So I came with the Student Movement for African Unity, and then eventually I became the chapter president at the school. Then we migrated to university. One of our colleagues, one of my seniors, Mr. Edwin Oklu, who eventually became the secretary of the National Union of Ghana Students, he carried the torch to KNUST and formed a branch of the Student Movement of African Unity at KNUST. So I joined, and also joined the Pan-African Youth Movement, PANIMO. These two together really were the torchbearers in inspiring the youth to develop their own perspectives of, you know, should I say negritude, the African personality, and also the fight against colonial domination. Those days, so that's how it started really at KNUST, and I remember starting to write some articles in the dailies those days, which caught on very well.
Okay.
And
I should find a few of those to read.
The editor of the Pioneer at the time was one Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. He was a really good editor. Then we had the columnists that included myself, even as a student. Then Valerie Saki. Valerie Saki and Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu were poached by Rawlings when he established the PNDC. They were brought to the Castle Information Bureau. And for the 11 years that Rawlings was there, plus when he transitioned to the constitutional head of state, he still carried them along. So for 19 years, Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu, the editor of the Pioneer, and Valerie Saki, Mrs. Saki, the white lady, they were in charge of Castle Information Bureau. And at the very outset, they wanted to poach me there, and I declined.
Why did you not? Why did you decline?
Well, I should say that the initial stages, because we had been part of the student leadership. Because at KNUST, I was, for almost 2 years, which is unprecedented, I was for almost 2 years the president of University Hall, otherwise referred to as Katanga. And there was some problem with the leadership of the SRC. So eventually I was called to act as the SRC, acting SRC president. Incidentally, my colleague, one Esplo Nani Kofi, who was my secretary at Katanga Hall, also became the acting SRC secretary.
Okay.
So we got along very well. And Esplo is a close friend to Kwesi Pratt. So it was through Esplo that I even got to know Kwesi Pratt. That was way back in the 80s.
Okay.
Plus Kwaku Bako, whom we referred to those days as Bombay, you know. So we grew up together. I said that they were in Accra and we were in
Kumasi.
In Kumasi.
I thought there was maybe a special reason why you declined to be part of that call to serve at the Information Bureau.
Not the Information Bureau initially.
Okay.
But the
Pioneer.
They mentioned our names to come to the leadership of the students, to come to Accra to assist. Okay. And we were to report at a designated place. I came, I surveyed the environment. I didn't like what I was seeing, so I went back.
By this time, how old were you?
At the time, I was, how old was I? Maybe some 22, 23 years at the time.
And when you finished your university level, at what age did you start politics? Did you, reading a bit about you, I learned that you had worked slightly, you were even an entrepreneur. What enterprise were you in? Well,
initially, they posted me for service, national service, to the Ministry of Works and Housing. Our time was when they began this 2-year national service scheme. So I went there. I was doing some part-time at Kumasi Girls, but into the second year, I migrated fully to Kumasi Girls to do my service. And then stayed, after the service, I stayed on for 2 more years as a tutor. Then went to Takoradi, to the ports to do some work there with one of the oil companies. But at the university, some incident happened that took me to Nigeria. And I saw the benefit of bringing some spare parts from Nigeria to Ghana. And it was quite rewarding financially. So even in school, especially in my final year, I was engaged in that. So when I was, in fact, one of the reasons why I migrated from Western Housing to Kumasi Girls was to afford me much more time to do the spare parts business.
Okay.
So I was doing it alongside the teaching that I was doing at the Kumasi Girls. Then after all this, I had opportunity to go to Zimbabwe to do some work. And I wasn't there for too long, I think about 2.5 years. But then it was a consultancy. And quarterly, I was coming back to Ghana.
What were you consulting for in Zimbabwe?
We used to call it the Datum Consult and Engineering.
Okay.
One wing of which was also into fiscal construction of estates.
Okay.
So I was part of the consults. And as I said, quarterly I was coming to Kumasi, to Ghana. Then from there I would hop to Nigeria, Lagos, buy some spare parts before coming to Ghana. So it became a routine that at least in the course of the year, I was coming to Ghana at least 4 times.
Okay.
While all this was going on, I used to write a lot for some of the local papers about what was going on, the improprieties, the deficits in the governance at the time offered by the PNDC and so on. They were hard to take, and sometimes it was difficult to find a publisher. Then eventually we decided to set up our own newspaper, which we did. I was supposed to be the editor, and it met stiff resistance. And I remember those days, even before then, a colleague of ours, when the judges were abducted and murdered, I wrote an article. Those days, no paper wanted to publish it. A friend of mine took copies of it and came to Legon, tried to paste, and at the time Legon had been taken over by the Workers' Defense Council members. Somebody saw him and they chased after him. He was nearly lynched. He managed to run away. And eventually one of our colleagues who had gone to London brought a ticket down through Togo. And then he escaped to Togo and then went to UK. He never came back until the fall of Rawlings.
Interesting. What became of that article that you wrote?
Well, we had to paste them at some vantage points. At the time, they were referred to as seditious materials. So if you were found out carrying one, we were going to bear the consequences. We were doing so in the night.
Wow.
In the night. But this particular one that also attracted some air, Otumfuo Asante had organized a meeting of chiefs and the people of Ashanti to mark the restoration of the Ashanti Kingdom. It happened at the Kumasi Sports Stadium. Rawlings was there, PNDC chair, he was there. And there was one Alhaji Abbas who was called by Rawlings to be his interpreter. When the event was over, the man was sought after, and people alleged that he was planning a coup together with some others. The person in charge of the organization, the security organization at Kumasi at the time was, what was the rank? Partington. So they went and razed down the house of Alhaji Abbas, quite close at the time to what is now Golden Tulip, rechristened Lancaster. His house was razed down.
In search of him?
In search of him. And the man was declared wanted. I think he was fortunate to have escaped to UK and stayed there until quite recently, I think about 5-6 years ago, when he came to Ghana. And unfortunately, a friend of his had lost his sister, his mother also, and he had attended the funeral on his way back. He was driving himself, got himself involved in an accident, and perished, unfortunately. Unfortunately. So that's how come Alhaji Abbas also lost his life. But then I wrote an article about that incident. And it was difficult to find a printing house to publish it for us.
What did that particular article seek to?
It sought to inform of the events, because I was there. I was there with Alhaji Abbas. I was there with one lawyer, Kufidua Donting, who Rawlings had tasked. They had just left the university as a lawyer, and Rawlings tasked him to probe the Ghana Football Association. At the time it was called GAFA, Ghana Amateur Football Association. Dua Donting was tasked to investigate some improprieties there. So Rawlings knew him very well. And Dua Donting had also been the president of the National Union of Ghana Students. So when he was tasked to do that, at the stadium, Rawlings saw him and beckoned him to come to the days. So he went there. Because I was working with him, I went there and stayed close to the days. But after Rawlings had engaged him, he released him. Alhaji Abbas was there when he was also invited by Rawlings.
Right.
So I saw what happened. The man was in the cloth that day, and we were, of course, young men. We were in just shirt and trousers, and we were told after the event that, Alhaji Abbas was planning a coup. So I wrote something, and there was this printing press that was christened in Samanko Press. It was privately owned. I've forgotten who the original owner was, but the PNDC took it over. It was a private person who had invested. They took it over and rechristened it in Samanko. The Presbyterians had a printing press. The Catholics had a printing press at the time. I took the articles there for them to publish them. They declined. I went to Samanko and was able to have it done. When it came out, it was really something else. And what I remember was that when we distributed to some of the vendors in Kumasi to sell for us, there was a soup on all of them. They collected them and burnt them.
Wow.
But then we had to go into hiding a bit. But I had some copies, stuck away in my house. And those of us who had just left the university knew that I was in charge. I was the editor. I sat down with about 3-4 of us to really bring shape to the articles that we have written. So we've gone through these things. We've gone through these things.
Now my mind is, I'm just thinking, maybe we have an idea why he ventured into real politics after that. But we'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to understand what informed his decision to want to contest, to be a parliamentarian, or if you like, a lawmaker. We go for a quick break. When we come back, we get to understand why Leader wanted, and we are stuck to the name Leader, forgive us, but we get to understand why he decided to be a lawmaker. We get to understand. Do stay. Welcome back. You're watching PM Personality Profile, and I'm sure that you have learned a bit of history. Let's get to learn him even more and better. Leader, so nearly 30 years ago, you decided to be a lawmaker. Was it your decision? Were you convinced? Were you coerced? Were you forced? What were the reasons why you decided to contest?
Well, when we eventually came back to settle, things were shaping up. The world scene, things were shaping up. There was the agitation leading to the collapse of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and a new shape of world politics was evolving and emerging. For those of us who really thought that military administrations are aberrations in our governance, way back, as I said, we started critiquing the administration. So upon my return from Zimbabwe, I teamed up with colleagues. One, Victor Usu Jr., Kokudia, Dr. Richard Anani, who became the Minister for Roads under President Kufuor. Then we had, for the seniors, the acting editor of the Pioneer at the time, called Atakrajima. We had lawyer Obin Menu. We had Dr. John Belson. All of us came together and formed what eventually became known as the Dankwa Buzia Club. And it was to give us a face to rally support to resist the administration of Rawlings. It was given birth to at Kumasi, at a place called KO, a suburb of Ashtown. So that's how it started. And later on, we found out and planted chapters of the club in many places in Ashanti, and forayed into other regions, the northern region, the eastern region, and so on. That metamorphosed eventually into the New Patriotic Party. The original name of which was National Patriotic Party. But then the name was changed at the last hour by the person who eventually became the first national chairman, Mr. B.J. Darocha. He said, instead of national, we should call it new, so as to bring together all the forces that were anti-military regime. It didn't really mean that, because, as I said, we started Dankwa Buzia Club. So it was the Dankwa Buzia Club was bringing together UPists, people who believed in the ideology of Dankwa and Buzia, plus Dombo and others, Ejianto, all of them. So that was how it started. But Darocha insisted that no, we should not close the door to other malcontents who may be CPPists and so on, who may want to come on board, you know, to resist the PNDC. So that's how come the name was changed from National Patriotic Party to New Patriotic Party. We're giving ourselves a new beginning. Now, when the time came for us to select parliamentary candidates, I would say that earlier on, some elders at Menchia had come to see me those days when we were having meetings of the Dankwa Buzia Club at Ashanti Town. They had come to see me that when the time came, I should contest as the parliamentary candidate for Menchia constituency. I was not too enthused, but I told them that, well, you know, those were the days of really massive fear, that culture of silence. So people were afraid. So I said, well, if the time came and nobody wanted to contest, I will contest. Not really fully fledged commitment that willy-nilly I want to be in Parliament. That was not. But as I said to them, the assurance I gave to them that if no other senior person came on board, I would do that. Eventually, Dr. Adukufo, who came to join the Dankwa Buzia Club, expressed some interest. I think that maybe along the line, He had heard that some assurances had been given me. So it was like some cat and mouse game.
Which is still like that in politics, is it not?
But then I went to him, when I heard that he was interested, I went to him and gave him assurance that I had heard that he wanted to contest. He's much more senior to me in age, experience in life and so on. So I assured him that if he wanted to contest, I would step aside for him, which is what I did. Along the line, the old Benshia constituency then came to be divided up into two. And I'm talking about 1992. It came to be divided up into two. So we had Menshia 1 and Menshia 2. Menshia 2 later got rechristened as Old Tafoswami.
Okay.
The vice chairman of my party at the time was one lawyer, Mie. The chairman at the time was Dr. Donko Fojo, who had been the president of the African Development Bank for a while before coming back to Ghana. And he became our regional chairman, with lawyer Mie as his vice chair. Lawyer Mie had a house in my constituency, but he had lived in the Swami constituency for a very long time. So he indicated to contest the Old Tafoswami constituency. And I think I've messed it up. 1992.
Yes.
When the constituency got divided up, it was this man was the regional manager of the then Texaco.
I'm sure I was crawling. I wish I could help.
Texaco. He was a regional manager, Ashanti regional manager of Texaco. And he had a sports paper that I was freelancing for.
Okay.
So when he heard of it, he said he wanted to come and contest the primaries at Swami. And because I was freelancing for his paper, he knew me. So he came to plead with me that he had gone to a few places and my name was on the ground. That he was my big uncle. We used to call him uncle. So he said to me that I should step aside for him. He wanted to contest and be in parliament just to serve as the icing on the cake for him. And if he went there, he'll be there for one term.
Okay. And
then step aside for me. So I did. I did step aside.
This will be you stepping aside twice.
No. Yes, for Dr.
Adokufo.
And then for this man. I would, the name I guess will come back and I will let you know. So I stepped aside for him. He went in the primaries. Unfortunately, he lost the primaries.
Okay.
He lost the primaries to one woman who bore the name Mrs. Redu. Mrs. Redu won in 1992 the primaries. But unfortunately, those days, in 1992, the elections were held for the presidential candidates, and then we had the second election that related to the general elections, that's the parliamentary elections. So the two were not held the same day. So after the first, which Rawlings claimed to have won, and which we disputed, we thought that because of what had happened, the non-transparency, it would be suicidal to go into the parliamentary elections. So we boycotted the parliamentary elections. So Mrs. Redu, unfortunately, didn't have the opportunity to represent the Swami constituency because of the boycott in 1992. Now, in the lead up to the 1996 elections, we had the primaries in 1994, and lawyer Mie then came and contested. But then he came and saw me because we were working at the regional office of the party together. So he called me aside to his office. He's a lawyer, as I said, and his law office was quite close to the regional office. So we had a chat, and he said he had gone down, he wanted to contest. He had been the president of the Ghana Bar Association, And he said he wanted just to, make a name as a legislator and leave for me to succeed him. So I obliged him. After some discussion, I obliged him. And unfortunately, just before the primaries, he fell sick.
Oh.
He fell sick and never fully recovered. In fact, he died 1997 after I had won. So he stepped aside for me and called the party officers that I had stood aside for him, that I was his nephew, and so he was recommending me to them. Unfortunately, the constituency did not oblige him.
Oh.
So they had to be primaries. So there were primaries.
Were they not informed about the many times that you had to step aside for people?
Oh, they were, but
it's just what politics is.
It's just what politics is. The others, I would say that at the time the constituency executives comprised 8 persons, and then the electoral college comprised the constituency executives, the number of which was 8, and the Otafo constituency had 8 wards, now called electoral areas.
Okay.
They used to be called wards. So the wards had their representatives. So 8 plus the 8 then made 16. I would say that the others wanted a no contest because of the sacrifice that had made for the party. But about 3 of them insisted that no, there should be primaries. And of course, technically they were right. So there was primaries that was held, and in that case, because of what had happened, my constituency was the last where primaries were held. And they came to be held in 1996, the very year of the election. I think it happened around March, April, Easter of 1996. And of the 16, I had I think 12 of them voting for me.
That's very impressive.
12 of them voting for me and 4 voting for the other person who came to contest me. So that is
that's how you started.
That's how I started, and since then.
And it's always been a win and win and win and win. For a man who has served this much, seen it all in Parliament, I personally call you the politician's politician. Were you some way unhappy that you were not made even the flag bearer of the party, or at most the vice presidential candidate?
Well, let me say I was not disappointed. Your own people, I'm talking about Joy. After I had presented the budget in 2021 on behalf of the Minister for Finance, who had been nominated but who had not been vetted, I had to present the budget on his behalf. After the presentation of the budget, Joy TV followed me to Kumasi to come and interview me. And they posed the question that, they thought that I was a presidential material and wanted to know whether I was going to contest. And I said to them that, in my considered opinion, our party is described by our political opponents as an anachronistic party. Fortunately or unfortunately, since the Fourth Republic, we had fielded only accounts. Adubuahin was the first, Kufuor followed, and Akufo-Addo. 3 on the trot. All 3 presidential candidates had fielded Northerners as their running mates, beginning with Adubuahin, who fielded Araya Lassan. Let me just chip in. The person that I said was the regional manager of Texaco.
Right.
Was called Raf JB.
Okay.
Raf JB. he contested against Miss Redu, and Miss Redu won in 1992. I was saying that in that interview, I said that I thought the time had come for us as a party to look elsewhere. That was my thinking. That I thought the time had arrived after the three on the trot. We three had also fielded running mates from the north. I thought the time had come for us to look elsewhere. Well, some other people who disagreed with me scavenged on me. They thought that I was paving the way for some people. I had had no discussion with anybody. It was just my own intuitive response. And my belief, of course, it was anchored on my belief that the time had come for us to field other people other than Akans. So, Dr. Bawumia emerged, and I was supportive of his cause. I was very supportive of his cause. You asking whether I was peeved in not being fielded as the running mate. I wasn't at all. I wasn't. And I would say in a nutshell that I was one of the people who supported Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh. From the very outset, I was the one, I should say that I was the lead person who supported his candidacy. In fact, at the very outset, I was even looking for a situation where, if we had a Bawumia, because I was convinced and persuaded that if we had primaries 10 times, Bawumia was going to emerge the winner.
Okay.
But I wanted Bawumia to pair up with Alan Chamatin. That's way back in 2022. I wanted the two of them to pair up.
Why?
Because I thought that partnership was really going to help us deliver.
Why not partner? Why not Bawumia and yourself?
Well, I was just saying that I'll come to respond to that. But I thought if Alan partnered, because don't forget Alan had contested against Akufo-Addo 4 times on the trot. And I thought at the time that he also carried some gravitas, and his name also resonated on the ground. So I thought if the two of them came together, it would really give us a bounce. Unfortunately, it didn't work. In fact, I had consulted many of his supporters, key supporters, who agreed with me. But they suggested that, no, instead of it coming from the top of one person's head, let there be a research into that, an opinion pool, a survey, and involving the two. So if anyone came up strongly, and perhaps we could even have 2 of such research, if there was congruence in the outcome, that this person's name resonates, then that person will be taken, and the other person then will be the running mate. So we had dealt with this until I went and saw one big man who thought otherwise. And he suggested to me that, look, we are Democrats. We're a Democratic Party. We have always had elections. After the elections, we come together. I was afraid. So I told him that, look, Alan has contested 4 times on the trot against Akufo-Addo. If he went again and lost, chances are that he would recline. I never imagined that he was going to pull out of the party like he did. I thought he was going to recline and decide not to participate actively in the party's activities. And that was going to have an effect on us, which is why I was strongly urging. So when the man told me that, I shot back, that with the greatest respect, you're not saying to me that in a democratic party, there's no space for consensus building. I think that shook him a bit. That response shook him a bit. Eventually, just when I was about to leave, and we had had the discussion for close to 2 hours. So when I was about to leave, he told me that he re-emphasized that we have not done this before. If anything bad came out of it, you have to bear the brunt. So don't do it. It was more or less a warning to me. And I couldn't in any way disobey that man.
Right.
Which is why I stopped that effort. So when I stopped it, I then went to Bawumia and told him that, look, I'm sure as a majority that I've been talking to a lot of people, and I believe if we went to the elections 10 times, the primaries, you're going to win. So begin to think of whoever is going to partner you. So we assessed a lot of people from all the regions, not including the northern regions, because that's where he is coming from, or where he was coming from. So the southern regions, beginning with Bron, the 3 original Bron regions, and then Ashanti, Eastern, Western, Central, Greater Accra, and the 2 water regions. We went through all of them. And eventually, between he and I, we settled on this person, Napo.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying that I'm one of the foremost people who thought that we should field him. Mine really was, when my name came up, I thought it had to do with my own age. I thought that maybe I may be too old, because I thought whoever partners him, if he succeeded, he was going to have a second chance, 2 terms, 8 years. I'm 68 this year. Assuming we had won with me, by the time he's exiting, you are 76. So if you have to succeed him, you are beginning at 77.
Right.
And I thought maybe that would be too old an age for me, even though some people disagree with me. Some people felt that, well, if you went, you could exit together. I didn't want that scenario, because, you see, since this Fourth Republic, apart from Rawlings, who succeeded himself, any other contestant has...
Did he really succeed himself?
Yes, from the PNDC to NDC. That's it, he succeeded himself.
They don't believe that. They thought that he moved from a military regime and then contested.
Yes, I'm saying, but he succeeded himself. He succeeded himself. So apart from him, all others, you have to have your image on the ballot paper,
right,
for at least 2 terms or 3 terms.
Okay.
It was only Kufuor who made it twice, the second time. Even that, if Kufuor had started with 1992, certainly he would have ended up winning at the 3rd attempt, right? Mills, 3 times before he won. Akufo-Addo 3 times before he won. John Mahama 3 times before he won, right? So if you exit with the presidential candidate, you create a void, and a new person will have to be marketed. The party had to
start all over again.
Yes. So I thought that if we had a younger running mate, then he could seamlessly succeed the presidential candidate and move on.
Okay.
That was the reason. As I said, some people disagree with me, but
we are where we are.
I was of the strong belief and conviction. But it is, as they say, as it is.
Before I went on a break, I was curious to ask, at what age did you get married? And how many children do you have?
This is a question relating to some classified information that you want me to divulge. But I'm legally married to Mrs. Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. With her, I have 3 children.
Okay.
That is my one and only wedded wife. I must honestly concede that before that, I'd gone into some relationship and had some children.
Okay.
The number of which shall not be disclosed. It will be part of the classified information.
But you have already been honest about engaging in relationships that resulted into children.
Yes,
but
yes.
What's the fear?
There's no fear.
Number of it?
There's no fear. But the number exists in some document that anybody can pry into. So that's your assignment.
When my father says that I am legally married to this person,
yes,
it seeks to say that I have many partners, but I'm legally married to this person. Shall I impute that meaning to what you have
said?
said?
Your father told you that?
No, when he says that, that's what I mean, because I scan around, then I see that I have
what your father. That's what your father said to you. Fortunately, I'm not your father.
So, but because then you mentioned I am legally married to this person.
I've not entered into any legal arrangement and pulled out. That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
I had some relationship. They were not legal. I have a legal relationship, a standing one, and that is what it is.
I'll come back to what's next after exiting Parliament. Are you nursing presidential ambition? Do you think you would ever nurse?
My wife is a nurse. I'm not a nurse.
Have you thought about it? Are you planning? Have you considered? Have you been engaged? Are some people at least convincing you that age wouldn't matter? You should consider.
Well, I would say that people spoke to me at the time I was a majority leader, and when they saw us rooting for Dr. Bawumia, I would say that many of them are men and women of faith, strong faith, and they still believe that I should show appearance. I'm yet to consider that because I've not really purged myself of the support that I gave to Dr. Bawumia. But we are prying into the circumstances of our loss. Ashanti has done it. The National Council has also formed a team that is forayed into all the regions. I think we should await the outcome of those reports.
Does this mean the outcome of this report will inform any decision that you will take?
Well, I'm saying that let's await it, because fancy the situation, and I'm not buying into it. But fancy the situation that people come out to say, that, oh, Bawumia was responsible, 90% responsible for our loss. What happens? If that is the case, then it would be suicidal to repeat him. But if it turns out that no, he had nothing to do with it, right, and that with him we could win. The second time, if he's granted another chance, we could win. Would it be wise then to peel him off? Right? These are matters that should engage the attention of the party and, all stakeholders.
Whatever the decision, wouldn't be that it will be somebody who is ready and willing, assuming they want to, consider whatever the results or whatever the findings would be, and whatever decision they decide. Should the decision be, let's go beyond the person that we use in the 2024 elections, they definitely would be engaging somebody who has nursed the idea, who has thought about it, or they now have to impute that idea into somebody.
Let's get to the bridge, we'll cross it. To me, it's premature to be talking about it now, when the findings are not yet out.
Okay.
Right? And if it is that, oh, the man could have won, but for 1, 2, 3 reasons. He could have won for us. If that is the outcome, why then would you want to change a potential winner? Right?
Okay.
In any game, we don't change winners. If it's established that the man could have won, everything going for him, but for 1, 2, 3 external factors, external to him, to his personality. In that case, why would we change a winner? But if it's established that he was deep in it and that he was part of the reasons why we lost, that then we give cause to another consideration.
Okay.
But we're not there yet.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how will you rate the Nana Akufo-Addo government and him as a president?
Well, people say that the verdict on his performance registered in the outcome of the elections. I don't want to wholly buy into that, even though I agree that some of it reflected in the outcome. You are looking at what this government, Akufo-Addo's government, did, and in terms of achievement, I think it's colossal. Let's face it. We now have President John Mahama, who is in a saddle now. Is promising to do things in some other way. But if I'm to judge him by his track record, John Mahama, when he succeeded President Mills, the success of any country's development is measured by the GDP growth rate. Now, the average GDP growth rate registered by John Mahama after Mills was 2.9%. 2.9%. Akufo-Addo assumes the reins of government, and the first 3 years is registering 7% on the average. But for COVID, that shattered the trajectory of our national development. Even then, post-COVID, we started climbing up, such that 2024, the conclusions are, leading to the country registering a growth rate in the region of about 6%, which John Mahama couldn't without COVID, without Russia-Ukraine war. So you see, if you juxtapose the performance as reflected in GDP, you rate Akufo-Addo very high. In terms of infrastructure development, Akufo-Addo's government did much better than President Mahama.
Okay.
Let's start with roads. The road expansion network by John Mahama, under John Mahama, was by about 4,000 kilometers, right? Within 4 years. In fact, both Mills and Mahama, they increased the road network from 69,000 kilometers to 78,000 kilometers, an increase of about 9,000 kilometers. Akufo-Addo comes from 78,000. Today, we've grown the road network by more than 14,000 kilometers. It's unprecedented.
So, but for you, if not for the constitution,
Then
that you can run 2 times and all of that, if Akufo-Addo, as he was, still had the opportunity, but for our constitution, to want to contest as the presidential candidate for the NPP, would you be happy to support that?
That's a different conversation. Because, as I said, sometimes with presidents, when they stay for too long a time, like I can't say, you understand that? You translate that for me. So, if water stays in the pot for too long, it becomes stenchy. So, with the presidents, you need to constantly renew.
Okay.
And we've given ourselves maximum 8-year period. I think it's good. Some people are saying that we should extend it by maybe one year to 5 years. It's something that will come up at the constitutional review. You remember, Kufuor, before he left, proposed that to us, that either we do 2 5 years or maybe one single term, 7 years, and the person comes back no longer. So it's something that as a nation we should think about. I was just relating to infrastructure, and I spoke about roads, even with the health facilities. Look, I'm in Kumasi. I'm in Kumasi. From Swami runabout through President Mahama's hometown, Boli, to Wa, until Akufo-Addo introduced this Agenda 111. There was no government health facility between Swami and Wa.
That's a long stretch.
That's a long stretch. Now we have one. In fact, Boli had a small clinic, now expanded into a polyclinic. But Swami now has The next constituency, the next contiguous constituency is Kwabri West, that has Offenso South, has, then the other one is even Kwabri, Afija Kwabri West, in between. Then Offenso South, Offenso North. Techimang has a hair facility, but it's a Catholic institution. It's a Catholic facility, Holy Family. You get to Wenchi Methodist Hospital. Those of them are health facilities that are funded by these religious institutions. So they are faith-based organizations that are running them. Yeah. But we didn't have until Agenda 111, which now has given us about 9 hospitals on that stretch. When just 8 years ago we didn't have. Of course, many of them not yet completed. I'm happy that mine has been completed and been commissioned. So with that, and educational institutions. So in terms of infrastructure, it's done much. But of course, government and governance is not only about infrastructure development.
Yes.
And other factors will come in, which is why I said that it's another conversation.
Okay. Okay. Leader, I'd let you go, but finally, what's your assessment of the current minority leader? Especially because when you're in Parliament, he worked very closely with you, and now leader. It's been nearly 2 months already. Everything he's done so far, are you impressed? Would you do anything differently at all?
I think these are early days yet. 2 months to assess somebody and, critically do and technically do a good work on him. 2 months into a 40, if he's to get it, 48 months. It's just done 2 months. It's just like telling me, how do you assess John Mohammed's administration? 2 months. These are early days, right? Government, if you want to see the signal, normally they will say, begin the assessment after the first 100 days. John has done less than 100 days. Yes. Just as Afenyo has done less than 100 days. With
your experienced eyes, beyond your glasses, if a person would perform potentially excellent, you don't have some variables that you look out to see that this person, the way they are crawling, they're going to take forever to start walking, or the way they are running, they're definitely going to be falling?
Well, my initial response to that would be, Father, let this, or Mother, let this cup pass me by. But just to tell you that we have some discussions behind the curtain, and I'll continue to have those discussions with him.
Leader, do you have a favorite food?
My favorite food? Oh, not really. I'm beginning to like fufu.
That is strange. I would have thought everybody from the Ashanti region would like fufu.
Oh, no. I was very upset. I wasn't taking fufu. Throughout secondary school to university level. It was after the university that I started eating fufu. And I really saw that I had missed quite a lot. And, so I'm trying to claw back the losses. Unfortunately, because of what work I had plunged myself into. Normally you come to the house, after 9, 10, and those are not periods for fufu eating. So when I have time, maybe over the weekend, I will attempt one question on fufu. But really...
And in that attempt, what soup and protein would you have it with?
I don't know whether you know the recipe. I believe you don't know the recipe.
You never know. Try to see.
I should try it.
Yes.
You know rere.
I know that is some type of nut that looks like granite soup.
No, you don't have the recipe.
I don't. It's true.
See how you are family. Rare soup with chicken is not bad at all.
Okay.
My friend and his wife, they just migrated from Canada, and I served them one when we went to Kumasi. And you have recruited them to loving it too as well. In fact, the consumption rate was higher than mine. The rate of consumption was higher than mine. I could see they had really missed. Oh, they had really missed it. If you're not doing anything work, what would you be doing for fun? Do you do anything for fun at all? Do you engage in any type of sports? Oh, in my life before life, I used to like sports, especially football. athletics and boxing.
Ah.
But boxing, they've lost it. Those days when they were boxers, today there are no pugilists. Those days, they were good boxers. The era of Zuma, the Sugar Ray Leonard, and then we had most of them in the lightweight division. Thomas Hens, Marvin Hagler, you know, and the heavyweights, the Muhammad Ali class, George Foreman. Today they are punching for money, but are no good punches, you know. So
Any special genre of music that you like?
Music? Oh, I like high life music, our local high life, not the current type of high life.
Okay.
I like the traditional ones, those ones, the lyrics which were crafted by the likes of Nana Pedu, CK Man, then lately Amachi Dede, Pat Thomas, those days, you know. So that's the kind of genre. But outside, I have favorites outside as well.
Okay.
The Commodores of old.
Oh.
You know, and I was just playing one of their lyrics before you came in.
Okay.
I was playing Night Shift. But the cool music of Commodores like Easy, even when they started, the Brick House, the Zoom, and all those ones. Commodores, they were my favorite group. Then we had the Bee Gees, you had ABBA, the classical, you know, musicians, not the current, you know, I don't know whether they are musicians or not.
In Ghana, there are two giants in the sector called reggae dancehall. There's Shatawale, there's Stonebwoy.
I don't appreciate your dancehall kind of thing. I don't. I honestly don't. I don't follow them. Right? It's like even before them, those of them who were occupying the scene. Look, they come out with lyrics that you are ashamed to listen to, especially when you are in your car with your children. Right?
I can understand.
You can't understand.
It's
and
like
yet you listen to them. You know, so I don't play that kind of music in my car. If I have to drive from here to Tamale, I'll play Ampedu, I'll play CK Man, I'll play KJC, I'll play Pat Thomas, I'll play Amachi Dede.
Did you have a favorite of Amachi Dede?
Oh, Amachi Dede, many of them.
Okay.
Many of them, but you know, because of the emphasis, you should know that my favorite is Nana Pedu.
Okay,
yes.
That's true, because that's come up about 2 or 3 times already.
Yes, my favorite is Nana Pedu.
Well, Lina, I guess I can talk to you for like the whole day and long hours. I've personally enjoyed the conversation with you, and I'll be knocking at your door, especially when that report is made public, because then by then we'll know exactly where the NPP will be standing, and then I'll have a part 2 of this conversation with you. Maybe that time won't be in a hurry. The questions will not be in a hurry, and you'd be happy to answer them. And a few caps will not pass you by as you were wishing. Thank you for granting us this interview.
Thank you for having me once again. But if you come knocking softly, the door may be opened.
Okay.
If you come banging, it will be firmly closed.
I like to think that I come gently.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you for watching today, and I'm excited that you stayed with us all through. And this has been one of my favorite installments of Personality Profile on the Joy News channel. I'll bring you another one again. Stay well.